Welcome to Reach Church. I'm Marshall Fant, the Director of Church Consulting and Strategic Planning for Gospel Fellowship Association Missions. My purpose is to encourage pastors and church leaders as you refocus, renew, and revitalize your churches. We've established this podcast to offer practical tips and suggestions as you equip disciples to make disciples. This is Marshall Fant with GFA Missions. Welcome back to Reach Church. Have another episode here, and I think you really will enjoy our guest. To some of you, one's going to be a very familiar face from ministry of years gone by to the other. Todd Bright, want to introduce you to Todd. So Dave Hine, welcome. Dave is on staff at Grace Baptist Church in Parker, Colorado. And I had the privilege of knowing Dave for many years. And then through Dave, I met Todd, 4 or 5 years ago. And Todd is a CPA by trade. So let's just introduce everybody. So Dave, introduce yourself, Pastor Hine, and then a little bit about where you are, who you are, and your family.
All right. Well, thank you, Marsh. Privileged to be a part of your podcast. And I've been out here with my wife, Jackie, Grace Baptist Church, an associate pastor role for now just over 10 years. And we've enjoyed multiple ministry here in Colorado. We love the state. And it's a privilege to serve with Todd and Heather, who've been a great part of the ministry here and their burden and vision of bringing the food bank to Grace Baptist.
All right. So Todd, introduce yourself to everybody. I mentioned you're a CPA by trade. I know from just being at Grace Baptist, you and your wife and family are really involved. So tell everybody about your family, how long you've been in Colorado, and a little bit about your work life, your CPA world, and then a little bit about your ministry world.
Yeah, 13 years ago, we came to Colorado from Florida. And prior to that, I was just in the business world doing those things. Got the call to ministry and came to Colorado to work with operations and finance for ministry. My wife is Heather. We've got 6 kids, 2 married, 4 still at home, and love the food bank.
All right. So how old are the ones still at home, Todd?
Oldest is at home is 19, and 17, 15, and 12.
Wow. Busy life. Now, just for the sake of our viewers. So Todd, your CPA firm, you do a lot of ministry work, right? So you serve churches, mission boards, or any really 501c3. Is that
That's
fair?
correct.
All right.
That's
And
correct.
so just so everybody can know who you are, give the website of your firm, please.
Yes, it's the Bright CPA. The brightcpa.com.
All right. brightcpa.com. All right. Thank you. So,
Yep.
all right. So this podcast is a result of a listener writing in. A friend of mine wrote in, and his question was this. Okay, so how do I balance? He's a treasurer of a church. So how do I balance benevolence? And then somebody in the church wants to start a food bank. So is a food bank part of benevolence? And how do we keep a food bank? If you do that, where do you even start? All right, so I want to read a verse, and then I want to tell you why we're interviewing Todd and Dave with the food bank. Now, so the way I'm putting it is, part of our benevolence program, and I'm saying the food bank, in my mind, y'all can explain it further if you disagree, is a part of the benevolence reaching out to the community. And one of my favorite verses is Titus chapter 3, verse 8, and it says this: "This is a faithful saying, and these things I want to affirm constantly or confidently, that those who have believed in God should be careful to maintain good works." All right, so a mark of a healthy church in Titus is once they have got everything in order, then that doctrine is being lived out, and they're doing good works in the community to see people come to Christ and then Christ likeness. So when I think of reaching out in the community, being salt and light, I think Titus 3:8 is our pattern for doing that. All right, so Dave, from the pastoral side of things, talk to us a little bit just how it was introduced, and then I know Todd's got all the nuts and bolts of it. So introduce from your side of things, and then I'm gonna hit Todd with a lot of questions.
Well, Todd and Heather would quickly tell you that the food bank began in their garage. And probably about 3 or 4 miles here from the church, they were interested in serving Christian families and different ministries that just needed help with the basic necessities of life. And God opened the door through really another gentleman in our church. It was one of our missionaries, Mike Smith, who became acquainted with the Rocky Mountain Food Bank. And from that, and from a number of grocery stores, Walmart, different facilities here in the Parker area where you could pick up food at a certain point in the week, they started that food bank. And it grew so large there out of their garage that I suggested one day to Heather, why don't you just come here to the church and maybe be in a locale that's a little bit more reachable for people, and your grounds here are limited. And we had no idea what was going to result from that. And so with some refrigerators, freezers here in the building, and within the building, the food bank began. And over the years, and Todd can tell you now, I'm going to say it's been at least probably 7 years, probably longer than that, out of the garage. The food bank has happened here at Grace Baptist and just exploded because of COVID. And then an opportunity through Rocky Mountain Food Bank to make Grace Baptist Church like a regional distribution center. So the food bank now, happening Thursdays and Fridays, is out in our parking lot, rain, sleet, or snow for the most part. There are so many people coming. I think somewhere between 175 and 200 on average on the big food bank day on Fridays. We are able to serve the community, not only Christian ministry people, but great opportunity for outreach, not only for food services, but as a result of that, and Todd will tell you much more, an opportunity for ministry. We always had this goal to be able to use it as a gospel outreach.
Right.
But frankly, we didn't really know maybe how to go about it. We pass out tracts while people are standing in lines. And our food bank is more of a shopping type food bank rather than hand out a box as people drive by. There's much more food available for them. And so finally, God allowed us to start an Hispanic Bible study and an English Bible study that happens for about 30 to 45 minutes before the distribution begins on food bank days. And praise God, out of that, as we're able to employ one of our missionaries, Keith Yuda, who's here in the area, start an Hispanic evening service at 5 o'clock, which dovetails with our other services at 5. So 2 Bible studies on Fridays. Actually, there's a Bible study Thursday night for the volunteers. And then the Hispanic service at 5 o'clock. And many people have been reached for Christ. We don't really have a record of how many have trusted Christ, but we do have an approximate number of how many now are coming to our church, numbers who've become members, numbers who've been saved and baptized through our ministry. Todd will give you a much more accurate read on that. But to God be the glory. Amen. To Todd and Heather, to all the workers who are a part of this. It's probably, along with Vacation Bible School, the greatest outreach from Grace Baptist Church. But it started really serving people with the necessity of life.
All right,
food. So praise God for that.
All right, so the background for our listeners before I get to Todd. All right, so Dave, obviously, because what Todd and I are going to talk about could be overwhelming to somebody. All right, so your church, roughly how many on Sunday morning are in your church?
After COVID, post-COVID?
Yeah, post-COVID.
Yeah, we're probably averaging 125 to 150. We would have been averaging 150 to 160 before COVID. A lot of folks have come back, but
all right. So what I'm trying to say is you don't have to be a church of 1,000 people to do this. That's where I'm going.
No.
All right.
No.
Because I've been with you and I've seen it, I just want to make sure people don't take that for granted, and or take it for granted. You got to be so large. In fact, I think it's Gary McIntosh in his book, One Size Doesn't Fit All. He says most churches can do one outreach well. They need to know what it is and do it well. And so when I think of Grace Baptist Church, I think this is what God has opened the door for you all. And from what I've seen, and even what's, I haven't seen it in several years, but you're doing it well. Is that fair, Dave? And then I'm going to hit Todd with the nuts and bolts.
Oh, yes. It's grown incrementally, and our volunteers have grown.
Yeah.
And yes, God has allowed us to do really beyond probably our ability because of all the factors, all the food and things that are coming in, the community that has recognized us. And yes, little as much when God is in it.
All right, great. Thanks.
Thank you.
Input from the pastoral oversight. Now, Todd, let's get into some of the details. So it started in your garage. All right. So when you and Heather, your wife, started this, all right. Again, was it, you mentioned this was just a burden you had? I mean, there wasn't like a written goal and written agenda or anything like that. You just kind of started out of a burden, or how did you start?
At the time, I was working at a ministry where we were all raising finances and funds.
Okay.
And I realized that raising support was difficult.
Okay.
And I was watching families, not being able to get their full paychecks because of that. So when we first started the food bank, it was those that were serving in ministry, pastors, missionaries, raising and support, homeschool families, and if we knew anybody unemployed. So it was meant to be a specific group of people when we first started.
All right. And what year was that, Todd?
It's 10 years ago.
All right. So we're recording this in 2022. So 10 years ago, that was your burden. That's how it started. And then, Pastor Hine showed us how it then segued into the church. And so let me just go. All right. So first I want to just go through some nuts and bolts and let you just, so I'm trying to get people, okay, there is a timeline and a way they could do this. All right. So you found a source for your food, right?
Yeah. It's amazing what God does. We started picking things up in my little Toyota Camry, and I ruined my shocks on it because I'm like, way too much food to put in a Camry. Okay. And then it was, okay, we're going to pick it up in our Yukon.
All right.
And then it was, okay, we're going to have a small 5x8 trailer. We're going to pick it up in the small 5x8 trailer.
Okay.
Then it was an 18-foot trailer. And then we broke the frame on our Yukon because there was too much weight on the tongue, and it was pushing down on our Yukon, and the frame cracked. Then it was, we need a truck, a bigger truck that can pull a fifth wheel. Then we need a trailer for that truck. So it was literally starting off very small at grocery stores. Then once we got the connection with the Food Bank of the Rockies, things changed for us.
All right. So let's just go back. So when you went to a grocery store and you were telling them what you did, who would they ask for? The produce manager, the manager? I mean, if somebody's just starting this from the beginning.
We talked to the manager, and then we also, they've got a lot of produce they're having to move out.
Okay.
Because they're constantly bringing in food,
right.
And they've got to do something with it.
Okay.
And we told them more about us, and then we watched other people picking up at the same time as us from other groups, and they would get more food. They get first pick, and we were kind of getting whatever was left. And it dawned on us that there's got to be a better way to do this. Mm-hmm. At the same time, God brought the Smith family to us at Grace Baptist, who was using the food bank, and we went and visited them to get in the program.
Okay. All right. So it sounds like you just took the next step, the next logical step, right? As God kept opening up doors. All right. So you have a great source. And I think now in the beginning, I know you're doing it 2 days a week now, right? But you only, when I was there, you had it one morning or one afternoon a week. Is that right? Is that how you started?
It was one afternoon. It was simple and small. You could even do it once a month.
Yeah.
The key is you're bringing people, whatever group that God's put on your heart, that's who you're bringing to. And it grew from 10 people coming to 20 to 30 to, can we invite a friend? Can we do this? And when we first started, we were paying 5 cents a pound for the food we were getting from Food Bank of the Rockies. So if we picked up, 10,000 pounds, we were going to pay $500. And we would take donations from people to help us pay for the food that we were then going and purchasing.
All right. So back up just a minute. So again, in my business background, so $500, I know you can't put an exact dollar amount on it, but about how much food is that worth? I mean, what's the worth of that much food? Just roughly.
Yeah. Here's what I like to do with it is, if it's 5 cents and you go to the store and you find something in the store, I don't know what you can buy for under, let's call it $2 a pound. And that's probably cheap.
Yeah.
So, you can multiply that 5 by 40. So I would say if we're picking up 10,000 pounds, multiply that by 40. And that's the number of, from a valuation perspective, significant.
So you're buying it on 1/8 of the price. Is that fair? Or am I wrong? 1/40th of, what am I thinking here?
I think it's probably closer to 1/40th of the price.
1/40th of the price. Okay. All right.
Especially when you start getting into meat. We're buying meats for 5 cents a pound.
Wow. Okay. So people need to understand now. All right. So I'm just thinking logistically now. I just want to kind of walk through this. So you got a source, and now you're using the church. You were doing it what time of day was that at the church?
We've done it at all different, but we ended up moving it. Originally it was early afternoons, but late afternoons.
All right, late afternoon. So right now you start at what time?
We do two different. I'll separate out the two different food banks. The public food bank, which serves we'll end up having about 200 to 300 people every Friday morning.
Okay. So you're doing it Thursday afternoon and then again Friday morning.
Yes. And the Thursday afternoon, this is a little more complex, but the Thursday afternoon is because we still want to serve the pastors, missions, ministry people. And we do that on Thursday, late afternoon.
All right. So you're
Friday morning.
Yeah. And then, all right. So you're staying with your original focus, and then you just tweaked it to then make an outreach to the community. Is that right?
Yes. Okay. We actually made a couple of mistakes that we corrected. We originally had everybody on Friday, including our people that had come for the last 8+ years. Then we separated out Friday morning to the public and Thursday to people that we've been serving over the years in ministry.
So what was the conflict doing all at one?
A lot of people coming through. We had time constraints. We had all sorts of issues related to quantity of people and time.
All right, good. All right, so I keep asking that. I just want people to see, are there going to be problems that come up like any other, and you just got to be able to work through them. All right, so right now, explain, you're using the church, okay? So when I was in your church, in the basement of your church, you had, I don't know, freezers, refrigerators, storage containers for food that wasn't, storage shelves, I think. Mm-hmm. And then you had tables to put food out on, okay? So because obviously you're having meat and other things that need to be refrigerated or frozen, right?
Oh, that's a great question. Historically, we would bring things in through the week. We had people picking up at different stores.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that.
And they'll put those in the fridge, the meat in the fridge and freezers, and milk and eggs and those things, and produce. We have, since that transition time, we have a 40-foot storage unit outside at the church. We store all non-perishable items in there.
Such as canned goods, potatoes, that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Toilet paper.
Okay. All right.
Family, everything. Household items, automotive. We have 3 trucks coming, 3 semis coming between Thursday and Friday, delivering to us. And we've now gone from 5 cents a pound to free because of COVID. And based on that, we'll bring as much trucks in as we can. We've also spawned off, which I know is not your question, but I want to share this.
Oh, yeah.
We've spawned off 5 other food banks. There are different food banks in different days in different parts of the Denver area. We've helped a new church by providing a once-a-month food bank where they were meeting in a hotel, and we bring food. And so they were out in the community, blessing the community, which helped launch a church. And so the food bank now has been utilized as God's tool to bring people to an area to be blessed.
All right. So again, I don't want to. All right. So we're talking 10 years down the road. All right. So those that are just listening, you didn't start with 3 semis, right?
No, sir. You started with
encourage. Okay. So you don't
Toyota Camry.
There you go. You started with a Toyota Camry, and from that to a Yukon, right? Okay. So what I'm saying is, where Todd is today, or where Grace Baptist Church is and the food bank today, I just wanted to make sure we understand that's consistent ministry in one place through one leadership. over a long time. All right. So, or over 10 years with this particular outreach. Okay. So, all right. So let's back up. So in the beginning, when you first moved it to the church, all right, and you were collecting the food or people were gathering it, you have a church of, let's just say 125. Todd, to do the ministry well, okay, you got to have a leader. Now, would that be you or Heather or both of you?
Give you a very quick answer to that. It was Heather originally.
All right.
With Heather, it was Heather. Then 2 years ago, she got cancer.
Oh.
And I resigned my operational position with the ministry to just do finances. And I am now the operational on the ground leader. She is the one ordering all of the food and keeping things completely flowing.
Okay. So in the beginning, your wife started. And who was at the church? I think the day I was there, I mean, Todd, I can't remember. Let's just say 4 years ago, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, whenever it was. When we were there, you had a number of volunteers setting the food out. You had somebody, I think, you had to have somebody to kind of control the flow of people. But just as you get started, I mean, would you want a core of 10 committed people? I mean, back in the days with the Camry and the Yukon, okay, not
Sure.
the pre-semi days.
Here's the good news.
All right.
Is the smaller it is, the less volunteers that are needed.
Okay.
As God grows it,
right,
He's growing it through the need. And when people see that need,
yeah,
the volunteers come. We have never asked anybody to help volunteer. We've never had a sign-up list. They come to us and say, "Can we volunteer? We'd love to help you."
Wow.
We just had a new couple in the church say, "We'd love to volunteer. We'd love to learn more about the food bank," and they come every Friday and help. So the volunteers come because they get to see God at work.
Okay. And I think anytime as a church and as a, as a ministry leader like you are, if people see God working, all right, they want to be a part of that. They want some skin in the game, either financially or time or whatever. Okay. All right. So Todd, let me shift gears here. All right. So we know you're paying out. Now it's coming in free. I think you said originally y'all paid something like 5 cents a pound or whatever that was. So you mentioned something about donations. All right. So if somebody wanted to start a food bank in there, and by the way, if it's okay with you, we'll put your email address in the show notes.
Sure.
And Pastor Hines in the show notes. All right. So if they want to do that, so if somebody coming through the food line wants to, at least contribute, in other words, they're gathering, they're walking away with, I don't know, $100 worth of food or whatever it may be. And so is there some way they can contribute on the spot, or is that just done later? Or how do you do that, Todd?
We actually have a donation box.
Okay. All right.
And we tell people there's no requirement to give, but if you'd like to bless the ministry of what God's doing here, then there's a box. And we've always had that approach. And we used to order based on what came in donations, what we could order.
Okay.
And so we let people know that.
Oh, all right. So, but people did contribute kind of from the beginning, right?
Yes, from the beginning. And for instance, the church, and I like to use this as an example, the church that we helped plant
right
in the last year, we did 3 food banks for them. The first one probably had 50 to 75 people from the public came through initially, and then we probably had another 50 come later on that day. By the time they got to the third one, you would have hundreds of people coming to be blessed. So I would tell the pastor, you share the word of God and just love the people. All put together your team. And we'd even get the people coming to shop.
Yeah.
We'd even get them to help us volunteer because we said, hey, we're here to bless you today. We'd love you to help us unload. And the faster we unload, the faster you can shop. And so we would unload a 28-foot trailer. We had more than 20,000 pounds that got unloaded in less than an hour.
Wow.
And we would put it in a parking lot in boxes, and they would shop through the boxes. And at the end, it would all be cleaned up and done. And so this church did it with no money, a few volunteers from their church, and we used the public to help us do the work.
Wow. Okay. So again, a lot of this is just going to come by absolutely experience. And as you've seen God lead and open doors in your ministry, again, I just challenge people to email Todd and walk through that. All right, now let's talk about, I think Pastor Hine said currently y'all do a Bible challenge before the food before the doors are open, or however you word that. Food is available. So is that the way you originally started, or how? Or I think when I was there, I think there was like when people come through, they may sign their name and some contact information. I can't even remember. So talk to us about those two things. How do you present the word? And then is there any contact information you ask them to give you as they go through the line?
Yeah. When we first started, we did have a sign-up list.
Okay.
There was no Bible study at that point in time. We were doing a Bible study at our house for people that were the volunteers, but it was more of an intimate group, probably 20 to 30
All right.
once a week. And then when things transitioned, and I'm going to use this church, then I'm going to come back to us, that church that just planted, I instructed them, I said, take down all the names and contact information for people so that you can email them and communicate when our next food bank will be.
Yeah.
And they did that. And they also
because
used
that
that
was
to
not,
reach out to them.
all right. So when you're doing the church plant, so the food bank wasn't like at that time every Friday at whatever time. So you wanted to be able to contact them when the next one be available, right?
Yeah, they posted on Facebook.
All right.
And said, hey, we're coming. It was in an area that didn't have a church.
Okay.
And of our town that was basically new growth and no church. And they saw the need. And so they did Facebook posts, got people to come. As they would come, they would gather information about the people.
All right.
And so we did 3 food banks. They launched the church now in a school facility, no longer in a hotel, renting. And they had more than 10 people from the food bank who were not going to churches, join their church and help them plant the church from the public. People getting saved. People, they had drug addictions. They had all sorts of issues they were going through, and they were bringing people to Christ and starting the church.
All right. So that's Titus 3:8. That's letting the world see your good works as we maintain good works to live out our doctrine. Now, I love that story. All right. So right now, okay. So 10 years later, you don't have to say when you started. So, but right now, currently, food banks open on, did you say Friday morning or whatever it is?
Friday morning at 10:45, we serve the seniors about 70 years or above. We give them time to shop by themselves, 15 minutes, 11 o'clock to the public. Our Bible study starts at 10.
All right.
So they can come at 10 o'clock. They get a number. A couple of reasons. They want to come early to get a number so they can get sooner in line.
Right.
Then we serve refreshments, which we've received from the food bank and from places in town, from cookies to muffins to bagels, juices, coffee. We serve that. And this last Friday, we had 65 people in the Bible study in our main auditorium. We had another 10 people in the direct pastoral Bible study. So we had 75 people engaged in a Bible study on Friday morning at 10.
All right. So let me ask you this now. The Bible study is held where the food is, or is it held inside the church?
Inside.
All right. So of course, you're in Colorado, right? And we're recording this in March, early March. So that helps, right? I mean,
my wife and I were talking about that the other night. We actually were praising God for cold weather because it moves people inside to the Bible study.
Okay.
But then we also had really good weather this last Friday,
mm-hmm.
and we had our greatest attendance. And we smiled and praised God and said, and there's always new people. It's not the same 200 people coming.
Right.
Every Friday, there's new people coming or people that haven't been there before in a while. And so we're constantly moving people through the Bible studies. That's inside. Outside, we share Christ.
Okay. Just one-on-one, walking up, talking to them. Is that okay?
We have two color vests. We have yellow vests for volunteers that are working, moving pallets and moving boxes and moving those things around the parking lot and doing setup. If they have a pink vest on, a red vest, that means that they are sharing Christ, and their sole purpose is to walk the line and just befriend people and talk to them.
Wow. All right. So, so you have both the event in the church, so where somebody's presenting the gospel to everyone at one time or doing some kind of Bible study, and then you got the one-on-one work going on out in the line.
Correct.
All right. So, I mean, all right. So the reason I wanted to interview you, because this didn't just happen. This has been developed and maturing, right? And if you've seen this ministry mature, I just wanted to pick your brain. All right. So, we got about 5 minutes. Let me ask you a couple more questions, and then I'll just turn it over to you and let you. All right. So the spiritual fruit you have seen, you've been saying this throughout. So you could clearly say that as the seed has been sown spiritually, and the need has been met physically, would you do this all over again?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. All right. That was kind of okay, Todd, here's a softball. All right. So, all right. So as you've been doing this, and again, I know you and we've talked. So, you pretty much stay the course. All right. You're an accountant by trade. This is your gift. You know how to stay the course. What would be a sign or two that you would say, okay, we're drifting off our theological goal here, and it's just becoming food for the community? So what's going to make you different? What would be, I know you've stayed on task. You've stayed on your spiritual goals here. But if a church calls you and say, Todd, we're struggling, what would be some indicators? This is what I was looking for. What would be some indicators that the church has gone from a spiritual focus of meeting people's physical needs and then meeting their spiritual needs only to focusing on meeting their physical needs? What would be a focus there? Now, what would be an indicator?
I would be looking at our Bible study on Thursday night, our Bible study and worship on Friday morning, the sharing of Christ with those in line, the fellowship dinner we had where we had 100 people from the public attending. That we told them to bring their best food that they made.
We'll back up. Now, what is this again? Now,
we did our first. Here's a continued desire and increase to increase the ministry.
Okay,
is the first temperature check.
All right, so that's an indicator that things are going well.
That's an indicator that things are going well. Or the opposite would be if you find yourself saying, you know what, we really don't want to do this ministry event anymore. We don't want to do this. I would just watch the indicator of your desire and your ability to just watch God grow it.
Okay. Because what I'm saying, we're not pragmatists. We just don't do it to see results, but we've got to have gauges along the way to make sure we're doing what we're doing. All right, now back up. You hit with someone. What's this dinner you were talking about?
We called it our 10-year anniversary dinner. And I went through the line in the public before people came in the shop. And I just said, here's when we're going to do it. We'd like to kick off one of our ministries at the church. And we want you to bring a potluck, bring your best food that you can make. And we watched everybody want to bless the food bank and each other. We had everything from baby back ribs to the best. It was unbelievable food.
Now, was that at the church?
At the church.
Wow. What day of the week was this on?
This was on we did it on a Saturday.
Wow.
So you could do it on a Saturday. You could do it on a Sunday. We've done a little bit of everything, but we did it to bless, and we had 100 people show up.
Wow. All right.
Hungry to be there.
All right. So, and that's where I'm going with this. All right. So I know you don't have a way probably to know this, but probably a lot of the news of the food bank to other people that need the foods coming from those that are participating versus Facebook or websites. Is that,
correct?
Word of mouth. Is that right?
We had to stop we used Facebook in the very beginning. We had to stop quickly because we had about 500 to 1,000 people show up. Wow. And we stopped Parker Road, which is our main road in our town. Yeah. And we had 7 police officers.
You're right beside City Hall.
Yes, sir. We had 7 police officers having to control traffic.
Yeah, yeah. So you can look at Grace Baptist Church in Parker, Colorado, and you can see where the church is. And then, like I say, they caused a major traffic jam in downtown Parker. All right. So what I'm saying, word of mouth, consistency, but again, prayer has got to start this. Okay. And preparing. So, all right, a lack of interest to see the ministry expand or grow. What would be maybe one more indicator that I'm drifting away from the theological goal of making disciples? What would maybe be another indicator?
I think when the activity, it's food bank for another church, it could be something else.
Yeah.
But when the activity of what you're doing becomes the main thing, and everything's around that, and the culture and heart of what we're doing is talking about food bank problems, not about people being saved. We were at a point where every week someone was getting saved.
Really?
Every week. And so we're like, that's a big deal. And so we'd celebrate that. We pray as we start before we let everybody in. We're praying, God, let us be your hands and feet, and let us have your eyes of compassion. Let us see as you would see. And God has faithfully done that. So it's people getting saved, families in our church. I want to go see where God is at work and just come alongside the work.
Wow.
So,
wow. Have you recorded any kind of video of what a standard day looks like?
I have. I've got snippet videos and pictures. I probably should have sent them to you. I've got.
Oh no, that's fine.
You can see everybody. Yes.
All right. So I just want to make sure people know there are resources available. All right. So I guess the last question I want to ask you is would just be, okay, if someone listens to you today, all right, and they just have this, the Spirit of God burdens them to do such a ministry, and they say, okay, I'm going to fly to Denver, Colorado. All right, and I want to see this. And I kind of recommend that before you go investing church time and effort and money and all that. Is that okay with you if I extend this invitation?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I'd love to.
So,
yes.
And plus it's a great place to visit, right? Denver, who would not want to go to Denver? And again, Grace Baptist Church is such a generous church, and I appreciate. So Pastor Ward Smith is the senior pastor, and I know Pastor Smith. I know Ward, and Dave, and of course I've met you. So I just want to encourage people just to go pray, and then if God allows you to, just email Pastor Hine or Todd and say, hey, when will be a good time for me to come visit? Because I think if people could see where this is now and the people you're reaching for Christ, again, it impacted me. And that's immediately when this question came up. Okay, do we even attempt a food bank? Bingo, Grace Baptist Church, Todd and Pastor Hine. So again, all right, so wrap it up. Anything else you want to challenge us or tell us or anything to wrap it up?
I'll echo what you just said. You come once. That's people that come volunteer, continue to volunteer because they get to watch the thank yous from people that say, I've lost my job, or I have no food, or there's one that says, hey, I'm just coming here to bless the neighbors.
Amen.
I want to go take food to a neighbor and say, hey, I was thinking about you. Here's a box of food. I just was thinking about you. You can use it for so many different ways. God will move in your heart. It'll change. God would meet the physical needs.
Yeah.
Jesus would sit at a table and provide food. And I just truly believe meeting those needs will bring people to Christ. They'll see, love God, love others. They'll see it.
And pray and prepare. Pray and prepare. Love God, love others. And I just want to challenge you because a lot of, again, my wife and I are in a lot of churches every year, and a lot of them are just kind of stuck. Okay, what evangelism? They haven't seen anyone saved in years. And the key is we're told to make disciples, but a lot of churches have no clue to where to start to do what we call effective evangelism, where you're seeing people really, consistently you're involved in their lives. You're seeing them on an ongoing basis. Now, I'm all for event-based evangelism where you have, basketball outreach, I'm all for that. But this is a week in, week out. Grace Baptist Church is known in Park, Colorado as loving God and loving others. It's demonstrated Titus 3:8 in their case by their food bank. Is that a good way to wrap it up? Or Todd, what else you want to say?
No, I think you've hit it.
Okay.
I appreciate the time sharing.
Yeah. And again, go to Colorado. Let me know when you're going. Email me, mfant@gfamissions.org. Maybe I'll go with you. Okay. And we'll do a live podcast or something to really show what goes on. But again, Todd's got pictures. He's got videos he can send you. And again, I just greatly appreciate all your time. Todd, Todd Bright, thank you. And may God continue to bless the wonderful ministry you have.
Amen. Thank you.
All right.
You're listening to Rechurch, a podcast of Gospel Fellowship Association Missions. If you would like more information about our ministry or how we may assist you and your church, visit us at gfamissions.org/consulting.